Welcome. This is the uh, the newest addition to the Primer for Paradigm Shift series, Permaculture in River Road neighborhood here in Eugene. I'm Jan Spencer, and thank you for joining us. I'm very geographically minded, so if you are not aware or familiar with Eugene, this is Eugene here, and this is Oregon, of course, Spokane up there, Redding down here, the Pacific Ocean out here. And this is the city of Eugene, and downtown here along the Willamette River. The University of Oregon is over here. This is River Road neighborhood. That's where I'm located. That's what this slideshow is about, River Road neighborhood. And more specifically, I'm probably just right about in here. The Willamette River is on the east side of our neighborhood. And there's a big rail yard here that doesn't see as much action as it used to because they cut down all the trees. So welcome. This is a show and tell of permaculture in my neighborhood, River Road neighborhood. But like just about everywhere in our country, there were people here before we were. And that's also true of the Willamette Valley here in Oregon. Eugene is at the southern end of the Willamette Valley. It opens to the north towards Portland. And the Willamette River is the main river. This would actually be the Willamette River. And the different watersheds kind of identified where indigenous groups lived also. So what this shows is in general, the indigenous people in this area had tribes and subgroups, but in general are referred to as the Kalapuya. And these are some images of their structures uh, before Europeans showed up. And I just want to say a little bit about the Kalapuya because they were really kind of into permaculture before permaculture came into being. They lived with the seasons. They lived with the natural world that probably could have gone on forever if the Europeans hadn't showed up. But this is a fascinating diagram I found. They lived, they weren't really nomads. They had a winter home and a summer home, and they had these different locations in between that they would go to when certain types of plants were ready to be harvested. From what I've read, and I am nowhere remote, uh, even semi-knowledgeable about the Kalapuya, but from what I've read, their economy and their way of life was more plant-based. They certainly caught salmon. They certainly uh, uh, hunted wild game as well. That was important too. But from what I've read, their movements seasonally were based on what plants were doing. That's very interesting. I find that fascinating. And of course, we all know that they used fire to manage the landscape. And probably like a lot of people, I wonder, well, what did that landscape look like? Because we were told it was kind of an oak savanna. And of course, I know what a savanna is. Well, this picture here is one that was on a website, and this indicates this is kind of what the landscape in this part of the Willamette Valley looked like with the indigenous people with fires, keep the undergrowth down. You would have the different types of plants that they required to cultivate. They created a habitat that benefited their needs. Well, permaculture is kind of like that too. It's a little different, but we have that in common. Permaculture is there to benefit our needs as well. So, as I mentioned, This particular program is part of a paradigm shift series. And these are some of the earlier presentations in this series. This is kind of a flow chart. This is, I think, the seventh. This only goes to 4 right here. I want to mention again that this presentation will go on YouTube as well. And if you look at it on YouTube, you can take a closer look at all of this stuff. You can pause, of course, on YouTube and take a closer look. But these are different aspects of the paradigm shift series. And these are some of my favorite attributes of paradigm shift. The greatest breakthrough needed for paradigm shift and moving towards a sustainable society and economy is not technology, it's, of course, our own consciousness. Positive human potential is our greatest renewable resource. There are untold thousands of people and organizations already working to bring about a paradigm shift all over the world, whether they identify with that term paradigm shift or not. A lot of people are trying to make a better world all over the world. These are just some of the ideals. I'm very much into the wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions, not necessarily the religion, but the social, personal, spiritual ideals of paradigm shift, care for the natural world, modesty of lifestyle, service to the community, uplift of the spirit, accountability for our actions. And these, to me, are some of the primary ideals of paradigm shift: reduce our eco footprints, build a civic culture, work with allies and assets in the community, which there's a lot, what we do with our time and money, of course, permaculture, and as mentioned, positive human potential. I think probably we all know what permaculture is. Just for anybody on YouTube who's not so familiar with permaculture, permaculture is a set of ideals, principles, goals, values that help us design systems for taking care of human needs in ways that are friendly to people and planet, very intentional. Okay, this is part of my neighborhood right here. I was actually in this airplane. This picture is over 20 years old. Um, I paid somebody to take me up in an airplane when I first moved in. This is about where my house is. Uh, Needs to be over there, more like there. That's about where I am right there. And another location that will receive a good deal of attention during this presentation is Dormalaya. Uh, we'll hear the story of that shortly, but that's right over here. And then there's other permaculture sites in the general area. But the suburban landscape has changed a good deal in the last over 20 years. All along here, this whole area here is now suburban houses. These are all been built on. The nursery no longer is a nursery anymore. There's a nice little neighborhood park right down here. There's houses along here. This is suburbia. It's infill. Um, we have a dynamic housing situation here. My place is built 1955. And then, of course, these here across the street are within the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years. So this is just a really simple graphic of some of the permaculture history here in my neighborhood. There certainly were people in the neighborhood interested in practicing permaculture before I bought my place in 2000. But what I'm familiar with is what we've been doing since that time. So once again, if one is looking at this on YouTube, you can stop and you can take a look. at this particular timeline. Um, we're going to see a little bit more detail of most of these pictures. I would also say that everything has its kind of rhythms and kind of its ups and downs. I would say the permaculture activity had its high point, I would say 5 or 6 years ago here in my neighborhood. There's still permaculture and people were doing things, but it was more out in the neighborhood and more visible, I think. And we certainly want to create another high point and go much higher than we have previously as well. It takes effort, to get people engaged in these ideas. A lot of people are really busy just trying to get by. And I think that many people would find permaculture has a lot to offer if they took the time, to kind of uh, contemplate, well, these are great ideas. How can I get this into my life? We're trying to move, elevate the visibility of permaculture, of course, even still, and we'll hear a little more about that. So, of course, I'm most familiar with my own property, and this is a graphic of my property right here. This is the north on this side, and this is the south on this side. This is a 1/4 acre property. When I bought this place 20 years ago, 24 years ago, the intention from the start was to do a permaculture makeover. And the property was perfect for doing that. Just my good luck. So this is what the house looked like when I bought it 24 years ago. Just a very simple, plain um, wood frame, actually 2 bedroom house. This is at a time when a 1 car garage was pretty much all you needed. And then this is what the place looks like pretty much at the current time, except of course this picture made in the summertime. It is not so green right now. This, where you see this kind of a tunnel in this area here, used to be my driveway, but we'll see a few more pictures of that. And this here is my backyard. This is what the backyard looked like when I moved in. This is what the backyard looked like last October, right there. Lots of edible landscaping. We'll see a little bit more about that. Passive solar, um, fruit and nut trees, vegetable garden. My intention from the start was to try to produce more of my basic needs here on site, like food, water, energy. Uh, I had no thought of anything like trying to be self-sufficient. That's not part of the intention. I personally think the major macro mainstream culture has a lot of great stuff to offer. In my world of paradigm shift, if we want, we can make good use of the good stuff and leave the not good stuff behind. That's a real important aspect of my take on permaculture and paradigm shift. Doesn't have to be a package deal. The mainstream uh, the mainstream structure has a lot to offer, but we don't have to use it all. So what happened here? Oh, well, something happened to that. That's the that's the top of the structure that I'm in right now. Well, we can leave that behind. This is what my backyard looked like, looking towards the southeast when I moved in. So that photo, and this one is more the now type picture. I don't really know what happened there, but that's okay. So this is the front of the house. Again, the driveway. One of the first things I wanted to do was to take out the driveway. Uh, my own opinion is that cars occupy an unfortunately large segment of our lives, our economy, the way we live, our culture. That's not an accident, which I'll mention that the next presentation will be about pushing back on cars. Cars are difficult to live without. Absolutely. That's not an accident. That's an intention because the economy wants people to use lots of stuff. And of course, cars use lots of stuff. So a friend and I rented a cement saw and we took out the driveway. This is what's left of the driveway right here. And further back behind here, you can tell that's right here. I also turned the one-car garage into a living space to help increase the residential density of my property because reducing eco footprints is a big part of what I want to do here. And this actually is what the garage looked like this on the inside. And I helped a friend to turn the garage into a living space. This is what it looked like when I was in the garage, the new living space for 7 years when I first lived here. When I first moved here, I live back here now in another structure that I built more recently, but uh, this is the same view from right here. That's the same view. Uh, that right there would be right about there. So reclaiming automobile space is a huge part of my interest. Permaculture is, of course, one of its ideals is to be efficient with what it uses, get a lot of output for what you put in, and that's good. Automobiles are kind of close to the opposite of that. Automobiles are not a good fit for permaculture. So this is actually what it looked like taking out the driveway. Here's the cement saw. This red line indicates where the driveway was. This is what it looks like now, at least in the summertime right here. I kept some of the concrete. My friend took some because he wanted some too. So here's another picture, that one picture that only part of it was there. This is the structure that we would have seen, but from a slightly different angle. But this is where the shed was back here. I built this living space. That's where I'm sitting. You see this window right here. I'm inside that window right now. I love this space. It also has passive solar design. I've got some glass up in the ceiling on the south side. And another uh, project was rainwater catchment. I have a 6,500 gallon rainwater system. I have two tanks like this. This is 1,600 gallons, comes off the roof. I have a Gavaloom metal roof is what I catch water on. Um, so this is two tanks here. I bought those used. This is a new tank right here. That's 3,000 gallons. That comes off the roof of this structure that I'm in right now. And I use a hose to channel water from this tank out to a 55-gallon barrel out in the garden. And I dip a watering can. I don't have a fancy electronic automatic irrigation system. Uh, my space doesn't justify anything that fancy. And besides that, I like watering my plants too. So this is a really nice rainwater system. This is food grade plastic. It would be easy to clean up this water right here to make it drinkable. A Berkey or even a camping water filter would make this easy to drink right here. These ones are used agricultural tanks. I think I would avoid those. So, so yeah, it's one of the most interesting projects here was this hedge on the west side of my property, my house right here, and my neighbor here. Both my neighbor and I decided that we wanted to get rid of this hedge. we couldn't do this on our own because the hedge was right on the property line. But fortunately, my neighbor is into these kinds of ideas also. Again, just my luck. And we took out the hedge, and then we built a fence. And we both have edible landscaping on our respective sides of the fence. That was like 10 or 12 years ago, right there. And one of the big benefits of my place is that it's an awesome community educational resource. I can't remember how many site tours of my place. I am considered how many people have visited here over the years. I would say well over 2,000 people have visited here over the years to see what suburbia can look like. And it's one of my favorite things to do is a show and tell. We actually have a site tour planned for this Saturday, and we'll include my place on the site tour. This is an out of town eco tourism bike group that I had a contact with, and they wanted to come by and see some places in my neighborhood. So they came by my place, they came by Darmalaya also, but these are mostly out of town people. So they had the benefit of seeing what suburbia can look like. But I should I should mention that our suburbia here, my particular quarter-acre property, the soil, the climate, the city's pretty hands-off, probably a better arrangement than is to be expected in any particular suburban location. I've lived in suburbia most of my life, and where I lived in Dallas, Texas, it didn't have quite the kinds of natural amenities and assets that we have here in the Willamette Valley. But that said, almost any suburban property has more potential than most people might realize. Okay, again, this was my property here. This one right here. We're going to look at Dormalaya right here. These rectangles indicate permaculture friendly properties. They don't all have as much stuff as I've done on my property, but some of them have features I don't have on my property. But these are typical places that we've been to on different site tours, and most of these rectangles, we'll see some pictures of some of these places as well. So Dharmalaya is a spiritually oriented, permaculture oriented residential, just a block away. Just my luck. Ravi and Michelle moved in a year after I did. I didn't know them. They didn't know me, but we've been friends for a long time at this point. They bought I think it's a half-acre property. It might be 3/4, but it's bigger than mine. Had a chicken shed that was taken down, and they built a totally beautiful straw bale structure. And this is kind of what the place looked like when I first went over there. The straw bale structure already had a roof on it, but this is what the walls look like. And of course, they were having work parties. Some of this was going on before I even knew it. So of course, was I glad to find this out? I certainly was, because Dormalaya has been the location for just untold events and get-togethers and positive social, spiritual types of gatherings. Absolutely. So this is what the straw bale looks like. It's pretty much the same view. This right here, what you see here, that is what you're looking at here. A good 6 or 7 years later. That's a permaculture class right there. All kinds of events going on. Inside, it's really beautiful. At the current time, there's Sunday morning yoga and discussion every Sunday. That happens at Dharmalaya. There have been just lots of wonderful get-togethers. this probably maybe 19 or 28, 2010, something like that. Our own small local permaculture convergences we've had at Dharmalaya. There were probably over 100 people at this one. Some people staying on site, some people camping out, some people live near enough they stayed at home. But this was a permaculture convergence with workshops and discussions. um, Dharmalaya also advocates a type of change in economics they call Prout progressive utilization theory. uh, Very people friendly, very planet friendly. This certainly fits in with my ideals too. So Dharmalaya is very much an educational center. Had a couple of run-ins with the city because they were doing things they didn't really have uh, a permit to do. And when Dharmalaya people told the city, we're just doing what the city's ideal goals are to, reduce greenhouse gases and all of that, the city kind of backed off, but Dharmalaya had to kind of become a little bit more discreet as well. But these are some events at Dharmalaya. And of course, the property is just beautiful. You only see a small part of it right here. Again, this is an opportunity, a view of what suburbia could be like with suburban properties that have this much size. Not every suburban home has this much space, but another ideal of paradigm shift is to make as good of use of what's already here as we can. And with this property, it's like living in a park. And they also have a little ADU, a detached structure, kind of a little micro eco village. And the next door neighbors back over here are of like mind. So the fence is down, and there's sort of a merging of the properties. I think that's really great. We'll see. That was N Street Co-op in Davis, California. Imagine neighbors taking the fences down and unleashing all that space and all that communications and what people could do in suburbia. So that's a little example of that's happening right here. So Vistara is another location a few blocks away. And again, this was even a larger property. This was a long, semi-narrow suburban property. This is what the back part of Vistara looked like early on before a whole lot was done. A lot of blackberries needed to be hacked out. But over a few years and lots of work parties, this view here is the before, and this is the same view afterwards. This structure back here became this structure right here. And so Vistara at the present time, there are a number of people who live there. It's uh, several detached structures, a little bit of a discrete micro eco village. And there have been a lot of events that have happened here over the years uh, to have looked at this place. And I was there and helped with these work parties to see what it looked like and what it became is pretty satisfying. This is one event. We call this the village. Oh, what was this? This was lots of different neighborhood groups. Um, People would share plants. People shared beer that they made. Kind of a little bit of an example of home scale economics in the neighborhood. This was just really great. All day long, see all the bikes here. There was a kids area. Um, this was just a fun event that people in the neighborhood organized, and this was one of the highlights there at Vistora. This is another workshop that we had. We had lots of potlucks. at Vistara. This is one of the little uh, under 200 square feet structure, which you don't need a permit if you're under 200 square feet here in Eugene, an outdoor kitchen, just lots of fun events. Um, Ravi is and Michelle have Dharmalaya, and when he told me some number of years ago this program that he was going to offer, because outreach and education is an essential part of what their purpose is. Community transformations was just one of the best ideas I'd ever heard of, and this was geared towards college age kids and they came. This happened for about 2 or 3 years before the city kind of came down on them some. But this was teaching college age. I think it was about 5 or 6 week kind of residential about permaculture, about yoga, about their economics, about healthy lifestyles. And I met a good number of the young people who came to this. And they actually invited me to come up to Green Mountain College in Vermont, because that's where several of these young people were from. They had me come up there for the better part of a week a year later and be kind of their permaculture scholar in residence for about a week. That was a product of the community transformations. I learned a lot of great skills. This is just wonderful. I wish we were still doing it, but it was great while it lasted. And I'm sure the people who participated are making good use of what they learned. So there was a big greenhouse. This is site tours. We do a lot of site tours. This is another picture of that garden. We saw that structure before. Uh, this is this has all been closed in now. You can see kind of a barrel oven back here. Um, so this was a winter gardening workshop right here. So what we've done is make really smart use of residential properties that were already here. So that's one of my favorite take-home stories of all this. This picture here, a different place. This is actually next door to me. I'm up on the roof of my space here, and my neighbor Bill had someone come in with a little bobcat and dig up his gravel driveway, maybe about 2 feet deep, and then had some manufactured organic soil brought in. Of course, this is the garage. The driveway was taken out, and this is what that looked like a few years later. So this was next door to me. So good for Bill for doing that. One of my favorite events that we've had here in my neighborhood is in 2015, we hosted the Northwest Permaculture Convergence, a suburban permaculture convergence. These convergences had been alternating between Oregon and Washington State for a number of years, and I had been involved with it as well. And one year I thought, we can manage to produce the permaculture convergence right here in River Road. And this is where we do it. This was a lot bigger than what we had at Dharmalaya a few years before. This is our neighborhood recreation center right here. So we made use of the recreation center. They gave us a great deal on the space, meeting rooms, kind of a large multi-use room. And we had a weekend of permaculture convergence. This is the registration for that convergence. This is the outdoor plan right here. We had um, a bookstore. We had all kinds of plant vendors. We charge money, for a nursery to come and sell plants. We made money on this project, that's for sure. There was a kids area. We had outdoor workshops. All of this part was free right here. This was all free. And we had a great site tour. This is one of the site tours. We had the site tour came to my place and it was so crowded in the backyard, you really couldn't even really move around. So uh, we figure that something like 700 people participated in one way or another. People from out of town um, camped out in the backyards of people who provided space. This was also at the time when the community transformations was going on. So some of the young people who were in the neighborhood for that were a big help with the convergence as well. We're out here in the park. This is part of that expo area right there. It was just an enormous amount of fun. One of the workshops right here, and this is part of one of the site tours. So just really a highlight. It was so much fun putting that on. And then, of course, working together, we build community by doing a project together. I've mentioned site tours a couple times. We've had just untold site tours in the neighborhood. This is one site tour. This is in the park down the street from me. You remember that one photo from the airplane that I said the nursery's not there anymore. Uh, Within that photo, this is a park that was built just down the street from me. Um, so this is where we meet for some of our site tours. This is where we'll meet on Saturday. So by site tours, I'm going to show a few locations in the property or in the neighborhood. This is Nick's place. He bought a duplex, and this is his early front yard garden, and this is back behind right here. So we had a show and tell at his place. This is Heiko's. This is actually a picture a few years old, a front yard food forest, because Heiko is very much into food forests. It's grown up quite a bit since this picture was taken right here. This is a block and a half from where I live. This is down the street from where I live, another popular place that we like to visit. Got a good deal of solar, lots of edible landscaping, chickens. This was my neighbor Bill on this particular site tour. He did some explanation of beekeeping because he's a beekeeper. This is another location on a site tour. A little bit. This is a little bit further down the road in the neighborhood. All these are in the neighborhood. This location, a half-acre garden, uh, Andrew's place on a site tour had a big suburban CSA, community supported agriculture. I'm not sure if he's still doing that, but this was a good place to visit. Once again, making good use of open space, available space. This is Sandra. Her backyard is just one of the most beautiful permaculture locations I know of. She's 5 or 6 blocks away, so we visit her place. Just uh, a wonderful, the front yard's very nice, but it's not so much food producing. But the backyard is just one of the most beautiful permaculture locations I know of. Uh, Another location in the neighborhood, a cob oven built right here. There's some good pizza that's come out of that. This is another location in the neighborhood in the early going. So there's lots of other sites in the neighborhood, just not time to see all those. But I'll show a little bit about our neighborhood association, but I also want to spend a little time on front yard gardens, and we'll see a little bit more of sites in the neighborhood. But have to say something about ARCO. ARCO is the River Road Community Organization. And the city of Eugene has a neighborhood program, and most of Eugene's 25 neighborhoods have a neighborhood association. I'm on the board of our neighborhood association. The neighborhood association exists to make the neighborhood a better place. This is not a homeowners association. This is affiliated with the city. The city provides some learning, teaching, a little bit of financial support, but encourages and helps neighbors organize together and address issues important to the neighborhood. So, because I'm involved and there's also interest from other people, permaculture is a part of uh, our interest, a part of our agenda, along with traffic, homelessness, um, new development. There's lots of issues in any neighborhood. This is uh, Eugene's different neighborhoods. This is River Road right here. This is a neighborhood meeting. We had one meeting that was about creating resilient neighborhoods. We had a neighborhood meeting just the day before yesterday, and that meeting was titled Gardens Deliver More Than Veggies. And I was the organizer of that particular. That was really great. So the neighborhood associations are just so important. Actually, this is a photo from a couple nights ago when we're all finished with hearing about gardens deliver more than just veggies. That was a great program. A neighborhood does outreach to the community. The neighborhood association can create events. The neighborhood association is a reflection of the people who participate. I would strongly encourage anybody to become involved with a neighborhood association, whether it's on the board or going to meetings and meeting your neighbors and becoming a part of making the neighborhood a better place to live. I can't say enough about neighborhood programs. This was another event we had, the promenade, the whole idea to get people out and become more acquainted with their neighbors. We have a beautiful greenway along the Willamette River. This is all park. I live back up here. It's all park. And this was a great event. I could describe this for a long time, but the reason I know so much about the city is because I learned this through my neighborhood association. The city in Eugene has lots of uh, assistance and um, and programs that are available to people in the city to help make their homes and their neighborhood a better place to live. This was another big event that we had some years ago. This is at the rec center where we had the convergence. This was a great event here. One year, Eugene hosted the Neighborhoods USA conference. Of course, many cities have neighborhood programs. Every year, Neighborhoods USA has a conference somewhere in the country, and that city will organize that year's conference. One year, Eugene did that. And because I knew about that, then I was able to get River Road on the agenda as both as part of the presentation program, but also the hosting city uh, creates activities for people from out of town to go see these different aspects of the city that's hosting the convergence or hosting the conference. So we offered a site tour of several properties in River Road, and we were taking people from Birmingham, Alabama, from Virginia, from Massachusetts, taking them around to see what we're doing here in our neighborhood, all this permaculture stuff. And the about the most common uh, comment was we had no idea people were doing this kind of stuff. We really opened up a lot of eyes. We hosted a dinner after the the site tour, so we had a chance to make friends with a lot of people from out of town, and that was because I knew about the conference because I'm involved with my neighborhood association. our neighborhood association also, of course, has a big interest in the Greenway along the river. Again, my location, I'm right about here. This is actually where I live, right here, Dharmalaya, right here. And that other map showed kind of this area right here. So the river is just over here. There's an awesome bikeway along the river as well. So the river in almost any neighborhood has some kind of item that can bring people together. And the um, the Greenway is that item for us. We've had lots of events in the Greenway. This area here, our good friend and hero Becky is sort of leading the charge in this open space to replant, recreate more of the natural landscape. We're planting native species here. This area could have been paved over. There was an idea to build a big indoor soccer facility. The people in the neighborhood stopped it. So we have a natural space instead of a parking lot and a big indoor soccer facility. This is another work party right there in Razor Park. And this picture here, just taken just a few days ago. This was just 4 days ago. Again, we're continuing with replanting native species. This also in the Greenway, this is the Filbert Grove. When the city bought these properties in an irregular fashion along the river, whatever was on the property came with it. This particular purchase included a 65 tree Filbert Grove. And of course, I go past here on my way to town on the bike path because I ride a bike. And the place was just overgrown, blackberries, English ivy. Because I was involved with my neighborhood association, I knew that the city had assistance for people in the neighborhoods who wanted to do uh, community building, environmentally friendly projects in the neighborhood on public property. It's got to be on public property. So I got in touch with the city and made contact with a woman, came out, we looked at the Filbert Grove and we made a plan how to restore the Filbert Grove. She knew a woman who had professional Filbert Grove experience. She met with us and she said, this is what I would do given the condition. This is not the way a Filbert Grove is supposed to look. So we've been doing this for 14 years. It's not a commercial grove. Anybody can go in there and collect filberts. It's just one of my favorite places in the world. But this is an early work party. What we're having to do is cut all but about 4 or 5 of these trunks. That's a lot of cutting right there. But this is what the Filbert Grove looked like a number of years later. This was another work party, and this is several of us meeting in the Filbert Grove. Uh, I actually have a uh, an agreement with the city for looking after the Filbert Grove. And Becky has an agreement with the city for there in Razor Park. So there's these kinds of partnerships with the city that are really important. And I'm sure other cities have something like this too. Maybe Eugene may have some things other cities don't. I'm not so sure. But when we look, we find we have more allies and assets than we might realize. This picture here, we had one of the worst ice storms we've ever seen here a couple of weeks ago, and these 2 big cottonwood trees came down in the Filbert Grove. This is the Filbert Grove back here. I took a good look, about 4 trees, pretty damaged, and another 4 or 5 somewhat damaged, but that's what happens. Uh, Nature decides to uh, bring down old trees like that. So these also pictures of of the Greenway. This is the bikeway. The city would have programs and occasions to close streets to cars. And this was when we did that in my neighborhood, although there's no cars go on the Greenway, but that's part of called Sunday Streets. This is a meeting we're having with the city. This is actually Lorna. She's retired now, but she was the person I worked with in the Filbert Grove. Very good. In this picture, in the Greenway also, there are some people who, particularly during the summertime, they do a free form dance jam every Sunday morning in the Greenway. They have a mobile sound system. It's far enough from anybody's property, and people come out and just dance. And there's a bubble machine and frisbee, lots of toys, lots of people make friends and music and just do free-form dance for a couple hours. This is about 5 minutes by bike from where I live. This is a recent event, the neighborhood association, and this totally fits in with permaculture. This is very much a part of the permaculture history and situation in River Road. We had a festival along the river. This is the Filbert Grove right here. And part of what we did is we made apple cider. There's a press back here. There were like 50, 60, 70 people. Just people love to make apple cider. This is another location in Razor Park for kids. We did freshwater biology. A couple people organized this part of the event. This was so much fun. Had a big display about permaculture, and this was a song circle. This event was so low energy. We did have electricity for the apple press. Yes, we did. But so much of this was low eco impact kind of entertainment. And this is a song circle right here. There were 40 or 50 people in the song circle right here. And of course, this is the bikeway, and these are different community organizations. We are kind of on the home stretch of the presentation. Got a few more pictures to look at. Mim's Garden. This this is a Lutheran church here in the neighborhood, and they made space available for a neighborhood garden, and people can come here and they can have some garden space. This is really wonderful open space, putting it to good use in this way. This is Mim's Garden, another picture here. Communities of faith should be leading the charge towards paradigm shift, in my opinion. Another wonderful asset we have that fits into the larger permaculture realm is the school garden project of Lane County, having school gardens. We have a couple school gardens at schools here in River Road, and they are very important to teach kids science and food literacy. So this is another big, important asset that we have. And of course, people in the neighborhood are invited to come to work parties. They're having a work party actually this Saturday. I plan to go to that as well. So the school garden project might not identify with paradigm shift, but that's absolutely what they're doing. They're teaching kids how to be healthy and eat healthy food. Fits in with my realm. Absolutely. Let's take a quick look at some front yard gardens. There's dozens and dozens of front yard gardens in Eugene. And what's so good about a front yard garden is people are out front and a lot of people walk in the neighborhood, and you meet all kinds of people when you're out front. You meet lots of people. And front yard gardens tend to happen in clumps. This one here, here, and another one that I don't have a picture of. They're all next to each other. There's 5 front yard gardens in a row on one street. And interesting, partly because this is a part of these properties that gets better sunshine. You can see all these big trees. This is where the gardens are. All these gardens are on the north side of the street. So that gives them a little bit better solar access right here. This garden a few blocks away. This one's close to the rec center. Uh, Not so far away. Some friends of mine. These are all fruit trees right here. It's just, I just love to see front yard gardens. And of course, this is kind of an interesting phenomena. A little front yard along the street, little libraries. I'm sure other places have these too. There's, I don't know, there might be 8 or 10 of these in my neighborhood that I know of. This is a good friend of mine. This was a tree, and he had somebody with a chainsaw make a sculpture of a frog up there over the garden. Uh, and what we're seeing are assets, allies, and actions. And this little graphic right here illustrates that put two of these together and the third one's going to happen more. Any two of these added together, and it boosts the third one also. Allies, assets, and actions. And then another really critical part of um, paradigm shift, of course, is what do we do with our time and money? All these examples of permaculture and these great projects here in my neighborhood are because people make time to participate. Some of them do cost money as well, but these are the product of people making good use of their time and their money. This this actually is Heiko's. We saw Heiko's place earlier, and this is more current right here. This is another friend's front yard garden. Uh, this garden is actually next door to this garden. Both front yard gardens, very different the way they look. These are just way different right here. And this is a really nice little front yard garden right there. And again, clusters. This is a nice cluster. Um, this garden here, right there, is actually back behind here. These two are next door to each other. And then these two are next door to each other, but they're across the street. So this is a street I go on when I'm going to the bike path and coming home. So I'm a familiar when I saw this happening, and it's all evolving, of course. I just, this is, we'll go to this site this Saturday for our uh, our garden tour because when people see front yard gardens and what a good idea they are, more people tend to say, I think I can do that too. So they oftentimes happen in clusters, front yard gardens. This is only a small part of the neighborhood. I don't even go to much of my neighborhood because it's a sizable neighborhood. All of these pictures are pretty close to where I live. So, well, we have a lot of good things going on here. It needs to be 1,000 times more. What would be a couple of the biggest ideals as outcomes of permaculture in my neighborhood or anywhere, actually, because this applies to anywhere? If somebody asked me, what would you like to see happening more and more in the neighborhood? Of course, I would say I would want to see the things that we're doing now become more common and expansive. So this is a view, a Google view of the houses in my little part of the neighborhood right here. This is my place right here because I've kind of done a little work here uh to to make some color. This is my place. It looks kind of like, yeah, that kind of looks like Jen's place. Next door, this of course where we took down the laurel hedge. Next door neighbors. This is the next street. This is uh, the next street over. Dharmalaya is just kind of down below here. So this is just a lot of open space. I mean, these are backyards, some of them overgrown, but if I could see and have happen what I would really would be my ideal as an outcome of what we've been looking at this evening. This this is what I would like to see. Here's my place once again. What I'd like to see are the fences gone and edible landscaping and really nice little features like living in an edible park is what I'd like. And these rectangles would be something like what I'm already in. I've already got one of these rectangles. This is my rectangle. It's bigger than it needs to be, actually. But these would be other dwelling units scattered around, and they would be sort of related to a particular house, just like I am right here. But uh, this fuchsia colored line right here just kind of is a make believe. Starts off here, say my neighbor Patty wants to go over here to visit somebody, and in this ideal scenario, she could meander through our permaculture neighborhood, playground right here, food forests, gardens, habitat areas, and this is the way she could meander over to her friend's place over here. I can look at something like this, any one of these locations, and just imagine what that would be like. And I can't imagine anybody who lives in suburbia who wouldn't like to have a house that has this kind of a setting for it. Property remains private, absolutely, but landscaping can keep people's places private as much so as they want. There's a place in Davis, California called Village Homes that's a little bit similar to this, although it was built, it's very middle class. The houses are large houses, but edible landscaping everywhere. There's another place in Davis called N Street Co-op, which is a little bit more like this kind of a retrofit co-housing where neighbors have taken down fences in real life in a mid-60s neighborhood. They've already got something not quite as complex as this, but pretty close. N Street Co-op, they've got a website you can look and see. So this is what I would like to see in the neighborhood. And then what I'd like to see out in the commercial area, because River Road is the main street that goes through uh, my neighborhood. For some people, it's just a way to go from downtown to where they live. It's not really a very pretty place, but this is a current old mid-50s vintage strip mall right here. I wouldn't mind to see this strip mall being built on. The businesses that are here can receive an upgrade, and hopefully they can afford the new rent as well, because this is probably going to cost more than this. But again, imagine people in the neighborhood with their time and money. Imagine people in the neighborhood investing in projects like this. It's not controlled by some outside developer. It's controlled by people in the neighborhood. Um, so it makes me think of our 44 Second Avenue Economic Development Corporation in Portland that does stuff kind of like this. Uh, an economic development corporation that's owned and controlled by the people in the neighborhood. Imagine being able to invest your money in projects like this in the neighborhood. This is even a bigger project right here. This is the suburban strip mall. I have my teeth worked on here. This is where I have my teeth worked on. My credit union is over here. I do go to the mainstream grocery store now and then. Of course, this is a typical big parking lot. So the ideal here is, again, to build on the parking lot, create a downtown, a dispersed downtown for Santa Clara and River Road neighborhoods. Maybe you have some buildings that look something like this. They could maybe be made more green friendly, perhaps, but you would have, of course, like much of the world already does, you would have residential up here, you'd have commercial down here. Um, you still have some parking, but the main street here would have improved bus service, and also would have improved bicycle safety along the street. So people who don't ride a bike now feel like they could ride a bike, to go to their little Santa Clara River Road downtown area. How much would this cost? I don't know. Tens and tens of millions of dollars. It would be a big investment, but there's thousands of sites all over the country that could benefit by this kind of redevelopment, make this affordable housing. Again, if we applied our time and money where it did us the most good, where it did the planet the most good, we could liberate billions, hundreds of billions of dollars every year in this country. This isn't as far out as it might seem. It only seems far out because we have limited thinking about what's possible. So this is the the making use of what's already here and repurposing it for a more higher use that benefits people and planet. So paradigm shift, permaculture, all these items of benefit. It's the human spirit, the environment, public health, uh, empowerment, positive culture, a local economy, business, and you can add a lot more. This is just what fits on my chart right here. All these elements support each other. And then once again, I want to mention these are the other parts to the primer series. You can go on YouTube and search Jan Spencer primer, and these will all come up. So that is the what I have for this presentation. I will add that next month, pushing back on cars, and then in April, public spaces and pushing back on cars in Europe. So that concludes the presentation. Appreciate your attention uh, and your interest in all these issues. We've got a lot to do. There's space for everybody. Thanks.